What happens when an entire city gets stamped uninsurable? How are farmers finding profit in soil data? Should it be illegal to ignore climate change? How is global trade shaping the Amazon? These are real stories with global stakes, reshaping how economies adapt and thrive in an accelerating electric transition. Today, we're diving into 4 stories that prove pressure can spark remarkable progress. I'm Alex Chen.
And I'm Jordan Park. This is Net Positive.
Net Positive brings you the investments, innovations, and impacts fueling the energy transition in Asia. We're a collaboration between Climate Capital Asia and FutureKeepers, produced with generative AI and human editors, cutting through the noise to show you what's really moving markets and changing the world.
This week, we're leaning into a theme. When the world applies pressure, progress often follows. You'll hear about farms that fight climate change with cutting-edge tools, cities rewriting the playbook for resilience, courts turning promises into binding law, and global trade battles reshaping the world's forests. These stories show how urgency sparks creativity and why Asia is at the heart of this transformation. Ready to explore how pressure becomes progress? Let's dive in.
Scotland is leading a quiet but powerful transformation in farming, and Peter McKillop captures it in his article, Scotland's Regenerative Revolution, Data is the New Bumper Crop for Farmers. Across the country, regenerative agriculture is being reimagined through technology and hard data. Farmers are deploying sensors across fields, using satellite imagery to track soil conditions, and applying carbon accounting systems to monitor biodiversity, water cycles, and greenhouse gas absorption. This isn't about theory or pilot projects. These are operational farms proving that verified environmental data can hold real market value. Here's why it matters. For the first time, soil health and carbon storage can be documented with precision, and that opens new revenue streams. Verified data unlocks carbon credits, attracts institutional investors, and strengthens the case for climate financing. Farmers aren't just producing food anymore, they're producing measurable climate assets. McKillop frames this as a radical shift. Sustainability is no longer a cost to bear, but an asset to leverage. Imagine a farm that earns income not only from crops, but from the carbon locked beneath its soil. That vision is now practical reality in Scotland, and it's setting a precedent with global implications. As farmers adapt, policymakers and markets are paying attention because this model can scale worldwide. If agriculture becomes a trusted supplier of carbon reduction, it changes the economics of climate action entirely. This is more than a trend. It's the foundation of a new agricultural economy, one where data is as valuable as grain and resilience is written into the business model.
Next, we dig into a hard truth with high stakes. The rising cost of climate risk, how it's rewriting the rules of insurance, and the surprising opportunities it's unlocking. Lucas J. Poles, writing for Climate and Capital Media, titles his report, Uninsurable, When Climate Risk Hits the Ledger. The premise is stark. Across Asia, from coastal Japan to crowded Southeast Asian cities, some districts are so exposed to flood, typhoon, or wildfire that insurers are simply walking away. Climate change has made certain risks too big to price. But here's the twist, Lucas highlights. This very pressure is forcing cities, businesses, and investors to get creative. In Seoul and Jakarta, communities and local governments are doubling down on resilience, funding green infrastructure like urban forests and seawalls, and pioneering public-private partnerships for risk sharing. Insurers themselves are piloting new models, parametric insurance for extreme weather, or coverage linked to measurable adaptation upgrades. Lucas's view is clear. Being labeled uninsurable isn't the end of the story. It's the start of a smarter, more resilient economy, with incentives finally aligned for proactive risk management. The financial system is sending a message: adapt, and the capital will follow.
If loving the planet is a crime, then lock me up. But here's the real headline. Climate inaction is now illegal, and the ripple effects could reach every government and boardroom. Blair Palese reports for Climate and Capital Media. Her story. Top UN court declares climate inaction illegal. In a landmark opinion, the International Court of Justice ruled that governments cannot simply sit out the world's greatest challenge. Inaction on climate can now be judged a violation under international law. Blair unpacks the sweeping ripple effect across Asia. For campaigners and youth activists, this is a game-changing tool, enabling litigation, boosting their leverage, and compelling local lawmakers to act faster. For investors, it introduces a new layer of risk. Asset managers and corporate leaders now have to assess not just financial and reputational exposure, but real legal vulnerability tied to climate performance. But there's a distinctly positive angle. Those who get ahead, aligning operations, investments, and policies with emerging legal standards, will capture the trust of markets and the next generation of consumers. As Blair puts it, accountability just got real. The incentive to lead has never been stronger.
Trade friction between the US and China is rippling across continents in ways few expected. And John Howell digs into it in his Climate and Capital Media piece, How are US-China trade tensions driving deforestation in South America? When tariffs and political standoffs disrupt traditional trade routes, buyers in Asia turn to alternative suppliers for soy, beef, and timber, often in South America. That shift adds pressure to regions like the Amazon, intensifying deforestation risks. Howell explains that this disruption has a hidden cost. More land cleared for production, especially in South America's sensitive ecosystems like the Amazon. While tariffs push trade flows south, the demand from Asia is accelerating deforestation and complicating global climate goals. Howell notes that this linkage between geopolitical policy and environmental harm often goes unnoticed, but its consequences are profound, shifting environmental risk from one region to another and raising questions about accountability in global trade. Is there any good news? Howell points to a glimmer of hope. Efforts by South American governments to strengthen monitoring and curb illegal clearing, combined with growing international attention on supply chain transparency. It's not a quick fix, but it signals that even in the middle of trade wars, there's room for smarter policies and stronger enforcement to protect critical forests.
4 net positives worth celebrating this week. Regenerative farming is delivering real climate benefits, proving that sustainable agriculture can drive measurable progress. Climate challenges are sparking stronger, greener cities, turning adversity into resilience and innovation. Law is transforming accountability into action and hope, giving communities powerful tools to demand change. And global supply chains are embracing transparency and stewardship, showing that responsibility can travel across continents.
Every challenge is an opportunity to lead. See you next week with more solutions, strategies, and stories powering Asia's climate transition.
Net Positive is produced by Climate Capital Asia and FutureKeepers using generative AI and synthetic media.